The afternoon sun over Lagos did not simply shine. It pressed itself against the earth with the stubbornness of a debt collector. Heat shimmered over the cracked asphalt of the Obalende bus terminal, turning the air thick and restless. The shouts of bus conductors rose like a constant drumbeat. CMS! CMS straight. Enter with your change, oh. Aja direct. Last seat remain. Danfos coughed black smoke as they jerked forward, tires screeching, while Okada riders weaved through impossible gaps, their passengers gripping them tightly with a mix of fear and trust. The smell here was an untamed blend. Fried akra and roasted corn, sweat petrol fumes, and the ocean salt drifting in fame from the distant lagoon. Adesewa Ajayi balanced a wide aluminium tray on her head, as if it were an extension of her own body. Steam curled from the mwamwa wrapped neatly in banana leaves. The puff-puff sat golden in a metal basin, and the spicy aroma of fried plantain drifted upward. Her long strides made the tray sway slightly, but never dangerously. Her mother's voice rang out from ahead, sharp, commanding, but laced with that familiar warmth that could break into laughter at any moment. Sua, Oya bring that tray here, Jer. Nah customer day wait. Mama Ronkajayi stood behind her food stall, a simple wooden table covered with stainless steel pots and trays. But she carried herself like the queen of this small patch of the market. Her wrapper was tied firmly at the waist, her gilly slightly loose to allow the evening breeze to touch her scalp. Her hands moved quickly, ladling steaming pepper soup into bowls, slicing ripe plantains, dishing jollof that smelled of wood smoke. Sua slipped the tray onto the stall, flexing her neck muscles with relief. Mummy, one man just asked if we get goat meat pepper soup. Him say you want take him go office. Mama Ronk did not look up as she replied, her ladle moving from one pot to another. Tell him say we get am. Make sure you give him better meat, no bone. Obalende no fit tire me. Nah, these people where they disturb us go tire. She was referring to the strange men who had been appearing around the market lately. They didn't look like customers. They wore crisp shirts, expensive shoes, and always arrived in tinted SUVs. They spoke to the market chairman in hushed tones, their hands never empty a phone or a packet of imported cigarettes. Rumor had it that a big man wanted the land. Not just Mama Ronk's stall, the whole row of tables and sheds. For now, the day pressed on. A bus conductor brushed past, shouting over his shoulder, Madam Ronk, keep one plate jollof for me, oh. Make I bring money later. Bring money first, she called back, laughing, though she knew she'd still serve him on credit if he came hungry. Sua worked beside her, passing plates, counting change, smiling at customers she'd known since she was a child. This market had raised her almost as much as her mother had. The women who sold pepper and smoked fish had watched her grow from the days she carried sachets of pure water in a small bucket. But then a black Prado SUV rolled up at the far end of the street, its windows tinted dark, the doors open in perfect sync, like something rehearsed. A tall man in flowing white agbada stepped out. Even in the chaos of the market, he stood out. His gold wristwatch caught the sun, his cologne cut to the smell of fried plantain. He did not look at anyone directly, but his presence seemed to pull all eyes toward him. He spoke briefly to the market chairman, gesturing with his hand toward the row where Mama Ronk's stall stood. Sua saw her mother's eyes narrow, her ladle pausing mid-stir. Mummy, who be that? Sua asked. Person way think say money be God, Mama Ronk muttered, before turning back to serve a customer. The man in agbada did not stay long, but his visit left behind an unease that even the smell of jollof could not mask. 2 evenings later, when the market was winding down, 2 men approached Mama Ronk's stall. They didn't greet them by food, just stood there, tall and still, like shadows that had learned to walk. The taller one spoke first, his voice low but sharp. Madam, our Oga talk say make you pack your things within 1 week. Mama Ronk stared at them, the ladle still in her hand. Which Oga? And why go pack my things? The other man smiled faintly, though there was nothing friendly in it. You go soon, no am. The land no be from market again. Nah, better development go happen here. Sua's chest tightened. Better development was just a fancy way of saying, we're taking your home. I beg tell your Oga say I no day go anywhere, Mama Ronk replied, her voice steady. I donde sell here since before una even know where Obalende. If him want talk to me, make him come himself. The men glanced at each other, one shaking his head as though in pity. No, say we no warn you. They walked away, leaving behind a silence that even the market noise couldn't fill. Sua turned to her mother. Mummy, maybe we should talk to the police. If we report now. Mama Ronk cut her off with a sharp laugh. Police? For Lagos? My daughter, police no be for poor people like us. If you no get person for her up, now your enemy go carry the case go. She turned back to packing away the pots, her face hard. But Sua saw the worry in her eyes, the kind of worry that mothers try to hide so their children don't panic. That night, as they walked home through the narrow back streets of Obalende, Sua couldn't shake the image of the man in Igbata, his gold watch catching the light. She didn't know his name yet, but she could already feel that he was the kind of man who got whatever he wanted, and she feared her mother had just told him no. The day it happened, Lagos had been restless from morning. The sky was the color of dull steel, heavy with clouds that dragged over the city like slow ships. The air smelled of wet dust and exhaust fumes, the kind of weather that makes people hurry through their errands before the rain begins. Mama Ronk had insisted on keeping the stall open longer than usual. Rain or no rain, people must chop, she'd said, stirring the pepper soup pot. By evening, the market was half empty. The shouts of bus conductors had softened. Some Okada riders had already retreated to covered sheds, smoking cigarettes. Vendors began pulling nylon sheets over their tables. Sua was inside their small shed at the back, washing plates in a basin. She could hear the rain begin. First a whisper, then a patter, and then the full assault of water hammering zinc roofs. That was when she heard voices outside. Sharp, not the banner customers. Pack your things now. You no day hear word. Her mother's reply was muffled by the rain. I no day go anywhere. Now when I tell him before, I go tell him again. Sua stepped out, wiping her hands. The rain blurred everything, but she saw them. Two men in dark hoodies, their shoulders hunched against the downpour. Their clothes were already soaked, but they didn't seem to care. One of them shoved Mama Ronk hard against the stall. The wooden table rattled. A pot of stew tilted dangerously. Mummy! Sua shouted, splashing to the water toward them. The taller man turned. Even through the sheet of rain, she saw his eyes, cold, impersonal, like she was an insect on his windscreen. He shoved her back, so hard she fell into the muddy water. The taste of rust and dirt filled her mouth. The other man pulled something from his side, a glint of metal that caught the little light left in the evening. A knife. No. Please, she screamed. The blade went in quick, low under her mother's ribs. The sound was a soft, wet gasp, the kind of sound Sua knew she'd hear in her dreams for the rest of her life. Her mother's body folded, her wrapper darkening as blood mixed with rainwater. The men didn't run. They walked away, their footsteps lost in the storm, disappearing into the warren of alleys that cut through Obalende like veins. Sua scrambled to her mother's side, her hands slicked with blood. Mummy, Ijo, stay with me. Please. Mama Ronk's eyes found her daughter's face. Her lips moved, forming a word, maybe Sua, maybe run, but the rain swallowed it. Then her head grew heavy in Sua's arms. The world around her blurred, market women shouting for help, a boy running for a kiki, the smell of pepper soup now mixing with iron. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled, and Sua realized it sounded nothing like the sky. The police station smelled of damp paper and stale cigarette smoke. It was the kind of smell that clung to your clothes even after you left. Sua sat on a wooden bench, her clothes still damp from the night before, her eyes red and swollen. Inspector Folahan entered the room slowly, adjusting his uniform cap like a man preparing for a photograph. He was tall, with a stomach that pushed against the buttons of his shirt, and his face carried the calm boredom of someone who had seen too many cases to care about one more. So, you say not two men where you know Sabi before? He asked, pen hovering over his notepad. Sua nodded. Her voice was hoarse. Tall, both of them. One darker, with scar here. She pointed to her cheek. They said something before they... Her voice cracked. Folahan's pen moved lazily. Any idea who sent them? She hesitated. I think it's the man who's been trying to take over the market land. He. The inspector looked up sharply. Which man be that? I don't know his full name, but people call him Duro. Folahan's pen froze for a second before continuing. Okay, we will investigate. He closed a notepad and leaned back in his chair. But say, for Lagos, sometimes these things, they happen. Maybe not robbery, maybe not misunderstanding. Sua stared at him. A misunderstanding? They stab her in the street. Folahan's gaze softened, but only slightly. Madam, my advice, make you stay careful. You too young today drag matter with certain people. That was when she understood. The case was already dead. She left the station feeling smaller than when she'd walked in. Outside, two market women were waiting for her, Mama Beezy and Aya Ganiat. They hugged her, murmuring condolences. But when Sua asked, "Do you know this Duro?" they looked away. Later that week, she overheard them whispering in the market. Police Don collects something from Am. Case Don finish. Something inside her chest shifted that day, a piece of her that had believed in fairness, in God's timing, in the idea that the truth eventually wins. It cracked, and in the space it left behind, something colder began to grow. The market still smelled of frying oil and roasted fish, but to Sua, it was no longer home. It was a graveyard with people pretending not to see the dead. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 2 weeks after the burial. Lagos traffic was sluggish even for a weekday, and Sua had taken to walking everywhere. It gave her time to think, or maybe to feel less like the world had moved on without her. She was coming back from the market, not to sell, but to help Mama Beezy carry stock from a wholesaler. As she crossed under the Falomo Bridge, she heard her name. Sua, now you be this. She turned. The man approaching was taller than she remembered, with a beard that gave him an older, wiser look. He wore a faded denim jacket and carried a small camera bag slung over one shoulder. "Kahine?" she asked, almost disbelieving. "Aha! You still remember me," he smiled, but his eyes were searching her face. "I heard about Mama Ronk. I'm sorry." The words hit harder than she expected, not because they were new. She had heard condolences 100 times, but because this was Kenny, her classmate from secondary school, the boy who once sat next to her in physics, who carried her books when she sprained her ankle, someone from before. She nodded, looking away. It doesn't matter now. She's gone. They stood awkwardly for a moment, the sound of traffic filling the silence. Kenny was the one who broke it. "I think I know who did it." Her head snapped up. "What?" "I've been working as an investigative journalist. The name Duroji Olademeji mean anything to you?" Sua felt her hands clench. "Yes." Kenny sighed, glancing around before speaking again. "We've been tracking him for months. Land grabs, forced evictions, political assassinations. He's got connections in government, police, even the courts. If you go after him openly, he'll crush you." Sua's lips curled in a bitter smile. "Then I won't go after him openly." Kenny frowned. "Sua, I know what you're thinking. I've seen people try. It doesn't end well." She took a step closer, lowering her voice. "It already didn't end well, Kenny. My mother is in the ground. What's the worst that can happen?" 2 weeks later, Kenny found her way in. It was through one of Duro's smaller companies, a supposedly legitimate export firm based in Victoria Island. On paper, it dealt in electronics from Dubai and Europe. In reality, it was a laundering front. Sua applied for a receptionist position. She sat in a small glass-walled office for the interview, answering polite but meaningless questions from a man in a cheap suit. Her heart thudded, but her voice stayed steady. The job was hers by the end of the week. The first thing she noticed about Duro's world was the silence. Not literal silence. The phones rang. People typed. Couriers came and went, but a kind of polished silence. Nobody gossiped loudly. Nobody asked questions. Everyone knew exactly how much to say, and no more. For the first month, she played her role perfectly. She smiled at visitors, offered them bottled water, managed Duro's meeting schedules. She learned the rhythm of the office, which days the big black SUVs came, which calls made the accountant's hands shake, which deliveries arrived late at night. She kept her ears open. It was in the 3rd month that she finally saw him up close. Doroji Olademeji stepped into the office flanked by 2 men in tailored suits. He was taller than she remembered, broader in the shoulders, and the gold watch was still there, glittering under the reception lights. He didn't look at her, didn't have to. Men like him only saw what they needed. From that day, she started piecing together his movements. She noted which days he lunched at Radisson Blu, which evenings he visited the Eco Hotel rooftop lounge. She learned the name of his driver, his bodyguard, even the mistress who sometimes called his private line. Through Kenny's contacts, she got a small unregistered pistol. She kept it wrapped in cloth at the bottom of her wardrobe. At night, she'd take it out, unload, and reload it until her fingers knew the motion by muscle memory. The plan was forming. Slowly, patiently. One thing Lagos had taught her: you don't hunt a lion by chasing it. You wait until it drinks. By December, Sua knew Duro's life like a map. She knew he preferred the Eco Hotel rooftop lounge to anywhere else when he wanted privacy. She knew Thursdays were for business dinners, Fridays for his mistress, and Sundays for church, a very public, very hypocritical appearance. But she also knew something more important. Every last Thursday of the month, Duro met a certain senator at Eco Hotel, and the senator always left the table for a phone call halfway through. That was her window. The week before, she made sure to accidentally spill wine on Duro's Ibada during a meeting at the office. She apologized profusely, keeping her head bowed but letting her perfume linger. He waved her off without anger, perhaps even with a flicker of interest. On the night itself, the air over Victoria Island was soft and humid, carrying the smell of salt from the lagoon. The rooftop lounge glowed with warm lights, the city skyline glittering in the distance. Sua wore a fitted black gown that hugged her frame without shouting for attention. Her hair was in loose curls, her lipstick deep red. She walked in carrying a tray, a perfect picture of a hotel server. No one looked twice. Duro spotted her almost immediately. "Ah, my dear, pour for us," he said, tapping the empty champagne glass in front of him. She stepped closer, smiling faintly, filling both glasses. The senator's phone buzzed, and as always, he excused himself, walking toward the far railing. It was just her and Duro now. She leaned slightly, her voice barely above the music. "Do you remember Obalende Market?" Duro frowned. "What?" The gun was in her hand before he could finish. One shot to the chest, another to the head. The sound was deafening in enclosed space, though in her ears it felt distant, like she was underwater. Glass shattered, people screamed. The senator dropped his phone and ran. Bodyguards lunged too late. Sua dropped the gun on the table. For a second, she just stood there, looking at him slumped in the chair, the gold watch glinting under the lounge lights. Then she turned and walked toward the balcony. She didn't make it 2 steps before a hotel security guard tackled her. The police arrived within minutes, faster than they had the night her mother was killed. At the station, Inspector Folahan didn't bother pretending this time. "You know you just killed a very important man," he said, leaning back in his chair. "I killed a man who murdered my mother," Sua replied, her voice steady. The trial was quick, too quick. The newspapers painted her as unstable, obsessed. Kenny visited once, his eyes red. "We could have exposed him." "Sua, you didn't have to." She shook her head. Sometimes truth is too slow. In court, she stood straight as the judge read the sentence. Death by hanging. There was no gasp from the gallery, no dramatic cry. Lagos had seen too much to be shocked. The prison was nothing like the market, cold, gray, and quiet in a way that pressed against the ears. In the weeks before her execution, she dreamed often of her mother, sometimes cooking, sometimes laughing, sometimes just standing by the stall, ladle in hand. On the morning they came for her, she asked for one thing, a plate of jollof with goat meat pepper soup. She ate slowly, tasting every grain, every drop. When they led her to the gallows, the rope rough against her neck, she whispered, "Mummy, we're even now." And then the trapdoor opened,